All right, peeps. So in the infrared folder, you will see, of course, the infrared videos that will be available to you throughout this lecture series. And you're going to see a folder that says IR websites and links. And if you click that folder, you're going to see a couple of different web pages that you can visit, and it will provide you more information about the infrared. So, introduction of infrared spectra, how to interpret it, maybe some hints and some tips and some tricks, a summary of an absorption table, and a completely another resource about interpreting infrared spectra. It seems that that's where people have problems. As we learn the functional groups one by one, they're very comfortable identifying if it has that particular functional group or not. But when I throw an infrared spectra on a test and I say, what functional group out of the many that you have learned does this represent? People really start to struggle. And there's going to be some interpretation of infrared spectra links there for you for that reason. There's also some additional infrared reading that will be listed for your pleasure. And that infrared reading, if you click the first one, it will be a PDF document. And the PDF document, it's kind of fairly large. So it might take your computer a little bit to load up the entire document, depending on your speed. But this is a chapter that has been scanned and uploaded into the system from a completely different textbook. So it talks about the instrument and the samples and what you should and should not do when you use an infrared spectrometer. It goes through a little bit of interpretation about an IR spectra, some movement and the theory of how all of this works. It shows you inside of the machine and the light path that the light source will take. And it will even talk about pellets and the differences between sodium chloride and potassium bromide and how to make them and why you should use them. So if you want to kind of have a reading material that has summed up everything that we've talked about in the lecture videos, then this will be a very good resource for you to quickly review at least before looking or coming in to take a test. There's also another supplemental reading material up that's another PDF document. So if you click that one is large as well. And again, depending on your speed, it might take 30 minutes for that document to pop up. But this is basically the same type of thing. So it goes through some theory, but it also shows you wave number and how to relate that to wavelength, and the relationship as far as mathematics goes between the two. And it goes through the theory and the background and the samples and the instrument and the spectra and interpretation all over again. The reason I put two up is because they're written in different points of perspective. One is more advanced and it goes into more detail, and one is just an overall kind of view about what's going on in the infrared world. So, my advice is to study the lecture videos first. Pay attention to me. I'm the most important, right? And then, after you get done with the lecture videos and you want to kind of review, or you just want to look at a couple of paragraphs or some topics to make sure that you really do understand what's going on, then pull up these PDF documents and review them. Don't read them word by word. No one's going to expect you to read these 16 pages in addition to all of the others, but this is here for your supplementary benefit. If you want the A, then maybe you need to review these documents on that test. And then, of course, the spectral database system will be into the folder, so that way you will have access to that. And then there's another infrared source that's the NIST webbook, and that also has some infrared spectra for compounds involved in that one as well. Finally, you'll see the infrared lecture PowerPoint that will be listed. So if you want a good summary of everything that we've talked about in the videos and a PowerPoint presentation with maybe pictures and other things to look at on the inside, then maybe download the PowerPoint, take a look at it. Don't print it off, but flip through the slides to make sure that you're okay with everything that will be coming up. So the test on infrared, a lot of people will have a question. The test on infrared will include 3 parts just like the other one did. Number 1, it will test your knowledge on infrared spectroscopy. Can you interpret IR data? Okay, so for the test, number 1, can you interpret IR? So I'm basically going to give you a series of infrared spectra, and I will say what functional group is present. Make sure that you review all of those functional groups. Another structure that I have been known to give in the past is that I have given you names of compounds. And these names of compounds you will have to match. So I won't say ketone, aldehyde, alcohol, but I'll give you the exact compound name, ethanol. And you should know that that's an alcohol. And then you should know that you should look for that particular thing in the infrared spectrum. So number 1, interpret the infrared. Number 2, there's going to be theory, of course, that's involved. So if you're putting a sample into the machine, why is it absorbing light? How does it absorb light? What goes through that process of getting the light to the detector? What is the theory that goes along with this whole setup? Why does it work the way that it does? Number 3, you're going to look at parts and pieces. Very similar to the UV test that you've already done, right? It's the same platform. What parts are involved? What pieces are involved? Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So if I show you pictures of the light source, if I show you pictures of the monochromator, are you able to pick those out? If I show you pictures of salt crystals, if I show you pictures of a gas chamber for the infrared, if I show you a picture of the ATR attachment, are you able to identify those? That's the parts and pieces category. And then finally, number 4 is going to be somewhat like a practical. You're actually going to have to use the instrument, and we're going to use the old one here, the Buck. So you're required to put your sample on a salt crystal and run it. But if you use the infrared instrument, can you identify the functional group that is present on the sample that you're given? That's the thing. So, very similar structure to the UV test. If you did well on the UV test, study for it just like you did for this one, or vice versa. I guess study for this one like you did the UV test. And you should be okay. But that's the breakdown of the test that you will see in the class. All right, so good luck to you in the infrared world. Some people will study infrared for 10 and 20 years, and they still cannot identify every single peak in the infrared spectrum. That's not your job either. Your job is to just general overview of common functional groups. Do you have an idea of what's going on and how the machine is operating and doing its job? And hopefully we've done that through these series of videos for you. So we'll see you in the laboratory. You have a laboratory structured around the infrared, of course. We'll see you in the classroom with a test in hand when that time comes. And hopefully you'll blast these concepts out with an A, just like you did with UV, maybe. So we'll see you in the laboratory.